ยายทองอาจอายุ 84 ปีในอดีตคุณ
Thong Ang is 84 years old and she used to have Lakhon Chatri troupe to herself, but due to some reasons she had to close down the troupe despite the fact that she's still very closely attached, very passionate to her troupe. It's been decades since she had not been active in the drama scene until at some point somebody saw her old images and had learned the gift and had learned that she did not forget the dances, the songs to them. And so they initiate the idea that she re-engaged Lakhon Chatri performance and to bring back and to revive Lakhon Chatri again. When I was younger, so they used to practice right across from my house and I used to watch. And when the drama troupe saw me watching, they say, come, would you like to join us? And I said, okay, I would like to learn. And my mother said, no, you're not allowed to. And I keep on watching them. I keep on observing them. And one day my mom wasn't home. So I ran to practice in the drama troupe. When she found out that I sneaked out, and though that she didn't say anything, she found out that I really have my passions in the drama. And I keep on continuing practicing drama, learning the dances. And when I see them play, I watch them, I learn from them. And when I could, then I start to practice in the stories. And I start to play in some characters. And one day I say, Sinjit, please go back to your drama. Please go back to your Lakhon Chatri. My son said that, and I was very flattered because somebody still needs me.
ผมก็เห็นพวกคุณยายเนี่ยได้
Well, personally, I have watched them perform since they were still very strong, since they were still very active, and I was much younger, and I saw them perform, and they were so good in what they do. And currently, it turns out that when I return home, these elderly, who used to be so active, they were dancing, they were jumping, and all of a sudden, because they're no longer performing, they're just sitting, having the sedentary lifestyle at home. And the younger generation, the children, they're already left home and they're working, and these elderly, they just sit around at home. And when I asked them, do you want to continue to the Lakhon Chatri performance? Yes, but where? Nobody wants me. So I came up with the idea that I would do whatever it takes to bring back these elderly who used to be Lakhon Chatri performers to revive and also to relive their experience again on stage.
Lakhon Chatri นะครับก็เป็นละครโบราณชนิดหนึ่งนะฮะที่เป็นลูกผสมระหว่างโนราทางภาคใต้กับละครแบบชาวบ้านของภาคกลางนะครับเราก็สันนิษฐานว่าบทเนี่ยค่อนข้างที่จะได้อิทธิพลมาจากละครโนราเป็นส่วนใหญ่คือเราวิเคราะห์จากสำนวนในการร้องแล้วก็รูปแบบของบทก็จะมีความคล้ายคลึงกับโนราทางภาคใต้สำเนียงในการร้องชาตรีก็จะมีความออกเป็นทางใต้มากกว่านะครับส่วนเสื้อผ้าที่ใช้ในการแสดงนะครับตัวละครที่เป็นผู้ชายเนี่ยเราเรียกว่าตัวพระเราก็จะใช้เครื่องแต่งกายที่เรียกว่ายืนเครื่องพระส่วนผู้แสดงที่เป็นผู้หญิงเราจะเรียกว่าตัวนางเราจะใช้เครื่องแต่งกายที่เรียกว่ายืนเครื่องนาง
The embroidery of the adornments has been made inside the community. We use the local products that's easy to find in the local markets. And the patterns, we didn't use anything too complicated. We use very simple And local wisdom, the orchestra, the band, we call them Chatri orchestra. And you can see the instruments are very simple. You have the Thai oboe, and also you have tone, which is the double drums. And you also have shing, which is like a bronze shing. And then also it's very simple. So looking into the community in which I am also part of, I grew up in this. I grew up in the community that this is part of their heritage. So since I was young, I grew up seeing the elderly. I see these old grandparents doing this. And when I go back, it turns out that everything has changed quite significantly. Therefore, if we still have this old wisdom, this old knowledge, and this elderly who still embedded in them the very strong knowledge of Lakhon Chatri traditional performance, why don't we just bring them back? Why don't we just recreate and revive Lakhon Chatri to show that actually the elderly who are sitting at home, it doesn't mean that they have no value, no worth. And we also create the sense of meaningfulness in their life, and they can also still feel that they can do and contribute to the society. And when I had the opportunity to invite each of the actors to return on stage, you can see that all of them, they were so active. They had so much energy. They didn't even think about their age. They didn't even worry if their body is capable once they're back on stage. Every single one of them did their best. They basically exploded. They exploded their balls of energies, and they were doing their best. I was a bit concerned. I was like, is it okay? Is she going to be all right performing? But once I talked to her, I said, like, look, are you tired? Are you okay? Are you exhausted? I am. But I'm happy. I'm exhausted, but I'm happy. I'm content. So this is something, like I never dreamed that I could redo this, but I can again. So I am no longer fear of death. I no longer have that fear of death. I just want to perform, and I just want to bring out. If I were to die on stage, then let it be. That would be my happiness. I'm born to do this. If I were to die, then that is my happiness. I'm so happy. I was so alone at home. I was so lonely. When I go out, I meet people, I meet my friends, I can dance, I can exercise. I'm very proud. I'm very happy.
ยายก็คิดแม่จะเล่นกับมึงจนกว่าแม่จะตายจากไป
This is all I want. This is all that matters. I'm very happy.
เพียงต่อลมหายใจ
That
ให้แม่
breath
ได้เผยแพร่
that you add
ไป
on,
ให้โลกเห็นไม่ได้ทำเพื่อเด่น
it
ดัง
encourages
สร้าง
and
ประ
it
เด็น
shares the arts to the
เพราะม
world.
องเห็นความ
They're
สำ
not
คัญ
doing it
ที่
for
บั้นปลาย
fame.
ศิลปินแก่ๆแค่ได้สุข จะบำบัดทุกข์ได้ให้ห่างหาย ให้ลูกหลานดูละครก่อนท่านตาย จะเสียดายหากกลายเป็นเช่นตำนาน
And when I saw that, it was a bit, wow, that's a bit over of my expectations. And both of them are still are at the graduation ceremony. So we have to really apologize to everybody that they can attend on behalf of them, because they had just found out that the graduation date has just been announced a few days ago, so they're really sad they can't join us. So can we go to the first commentator, Kun Kaylin, please?
Thanks. So I think even though that they're not here, but I think everyone watched the video will feel the emotion, the determinations. I think that the storytelling part is really compelling, especially I can feel that he was telling the stories of the main female character, and I can see that how everything was narrated. The whole video itself is a very lovely documentary that can be shared. It's already a good material to promote, to raise the awareness. So I think everyone will agree that this is something that they're really passionate about, and I see their determinations to take it forward. I think the only thing that would be very interesting to learn more about is actually to understand how what are their plans to take it to more other communities, to younger generations, exactly on how they're going to implement it in a more practical way. But I do believe that if they are so determined and they're so they take it as the passions and missions for their life, then definitely they will find a way to bring it to more people. So yeah, I think that's just my feeling, and really impressed with the whole video. So thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Pelita, please. I'm very impressed in the video documentary, and I feel, how do I say this? I feel very touched watching it. And to compare, I think somebody had the opportunity. Recently, something came out. There was a clip, the documentary of a Spanish ballerina. When the documentary was made, she was 94 years old. She had Alzheimer's. She completely lost all of her memories, and she was in a wheelchair. But once the caretaker plays the Swan Lake music, which is part of her role, in which she was the ballerina, and she was the leading ballerina, and this 94-year-old grandma came back to life. She remembers exactly all the movements, the expressions. She just came back to life. And the video was very short, but once it was shared, it went viral, and more than millions had seen it. So I believe that this video that you made has something very similar. It has a very similar characteristics. You can see that arts live inside her. Art is her, even though she's 84. She can barely climb up the steps, but once she's back on stage, there's some magic, there's some power that brought her back to life. And I think that video, that's beautiful. I think you should translate that into English, and you should create a subtitle and disseminate that and share it to reach an wider audience. And then you can see immediately that this desire to do something for them, it's huge. But the question is, what are we going to do and how are we going to do it? And what has been written in the PowerPoint, it seems that you want to create a space so that they can perform. I do agree very much. I have no objections. And perhaps there will be the next generation who would be interested and to take it forward. And those who are interested in traditional drama, traditional performance, kon, or something that's really traditional, like myself, I'm also traditional. But you don't have to say anything. I would watch it anyway. But if you can imagine the general population, even youth in particular, their tastes are different. Their taste might not fit this kind of play. This is probably not the type of things that they would go to. So the question is, how do we make this appealing? They're going to watch Netflix, they're going to watch Korean series. So I think that this team, perhaps you need to have some kind of an introduction to build and to create this taste, right, for the general population. What is the main characteristics of this type of play? That can be something of value. Maybe that's in the content, the value that existed in this kind of Lakhon Chatri, which is 100 years old, 80 years old, it may no longer exist in the plays that we see nowadays. That is something specific and unique. Improvisation, that is also part of the main characteristics of Lakhon Chatri. It might be a particular dance, particular movements, particular song. So these are the types of things that we can highlight to say how special Lakhon Chatri is and why must we be interested in them? What's their main point? And if that is possible, that is going to encourage wider audience and it would be much more attractive. But I really like this video documentary. I really encourage you to share this to the wider audience. Okay, the last commentator, please. Wilani said that, please. So actually, after watching the video, I do feel very much like Dr. Parita. I feel touched. I feel very sentimental. I see that actually I see much more value and worth of Lakhon Chatri. You can see this elderly from 80, 90-year-old. She was lonely, she was at home, and she one day woke up and then she had the energy to do something. But then when I think further, the next, who's going to watch? Who's going to be the audience? Paprita said, you like it. But then the question is, will the younger generation watch? And if they're not interested, would it be sustainable? When you safeguard this cultural heritage, but if it's not sustainable, then what are you safeguarding? So the question is, how do you ensure that Lakhon Chatri adapts to the time, adapts to the newer audience, especially those who also belong to the community so that they can pass it on to the next generation? And you can see that some of them, they're so proud that they're happily, they would die on stage. And then what next if they die, right? It's not going to be sustainable. So we have to think. So what next? They perhaps have to think about, okay, these are the younger generation. Some of them are unemployed. Some of them are fresh graduates. They have no jobs. Perhaps we can also use them to be part of the tradition. We can also use them to also pass on this tradition. Perhaps it might be some of the adornments. Maybe it's something that they wear, the costumes. Maybe it's the music. Maybe it needs to be adapted to the times. But however, it needs to maintain the identity and the uniqueness of Lakhon Chatri. So that's my comment. Thank you so much. So thank you so much for the 3 comments. I will also forward this to the team, and the team would the team is slowly answering everybody. So give them a little bit of time. And I do agree very much on the question of sustainability, because if the target audience is actually the elderly, then perhaps we need to think further. And how do you recreate that image in the documentary that actually you guys are the players in that documentary itself, when you have the younger kids being completely interested, wanting to be a part of it? How do we recreate that? How do we recreate the momentum in which the younger generation saw it and they want to take part in it, they want to learn it? So how do you make it relevant, right, to this times? How do you make it relevant to the taste of this time? So how are we going to do that to Lakhon Chatri? There might needs to be some adjustments. There might need to be some accommodations. So perhaps we also need to think about how we can pass that on to the younger the generation, as it was passed on to her from her older generation that comes before her.